In 2018, Jonathan and I got our first place together. We were stoked to finally act like real adults. It didn't take long to notice the local creep. He lived 2 floors up from us. He was an older guy with a totally blank face. He drove a rusty truck and fed stray cats every day. He seemed like a weird but harmless dude. One day we get home and he's standing by his truck. He's staring us down, and it gives me the creeps. Jonathan is too freaked out to even get out of the car. I don't want to admit I'm scared, so I tell him it's fine since it's daylight. We hop out, and I grab my bag of school quizzes from the trunk. I shut the trunk, and the old man is standing right there. He looks like he just saw something terrifying. I jump and ask him if everything is cool. "No, it's not," he says back. He starts complaining about a new neighbor being a jerk. His voice sounds super familiar, but I can't place it. I tell him I haven't met her yet. He says she called about the cats, and now animal control is coming. I tell him I'm sorry to hear that. He says he figured we'd feel the same since the place has gone to hell. He acts like he's telling a secret and says he used to work there. He did maintenance, but got fired once they found out about his lifestyle. He says they don't get our lifestyle, while pointing at us. I assume he means because we're gay, but I'm not sure. Jonathan says that sucks, while trying to get to our door. The guy says they're horrible people, and hopes the new neighbor hears it. That's when I realize he sounds exactly like Freddy Krueger. Jonathan mentions he actually starts working at the office on Monday. The guy tells him good luck, and to keep his business private. He laughs and says not to turn into a weirdo, or karma will get him. We both give a nervous laugh. I tell him good luck with the cats, and nudge Jonathan toward the door. He says it was nice talking to us while still laughing. It wasn't a happy laugh. It sounded like the Joker.
A month goes by and we only see him once in a while. The cats are still around, so we figured he was fine. We didn't talk to him again, luckily. Jonathan kept his job, and everyone there was actually nice. Then one day, he comes home with news. I ask him why the guy is getting evicted. He says the office and other tenants complained about him harassing them. I agree he's creepy, but wonder if that's enough for eviction. They gave him 1 week to pack up and leave. A week later, the guy comes into the office to drop off his keys. Jonathan calls the manager, but the guy starts whispering to him. He tells Jonathan he needs to get out because those people are evil. The manager comes out and kicks the guy out of the building. A week passes and we don't see him at all. Around midnight one night, someone knocks on our door. I figure it's a neighbor complaining about the TV volume. I look through the peephole and see him staring right back. He has this huge, totally unnatural smile on his face. It's the biggest smile I've ever seen, and it's terrifying. I back away from the door in shock. Jonathan asks me what's wrong. I whisper that the old man is out there. We both stand there staring at the door. He knocks again and I snap out of it. I run to the kitchen and grab every knife I can find. I tell Jonathan to hide in the bathroom and call 911. Then I hear keys rattling in our lock. I realize the security bolt isn't latched. It's the kind of bolt that keeps the door from opening all the way. I sneak over and quietly slide the bolt into place. Right then, he slams into the door and I almost drop my knife. Everything goes dead quiet for a second. Then he starts whispering for us to let him in. He says, "It's just me," and mentions karma again. I'm beyond terrified and run to the bathroom. I shut the door quietly so he doesn't know where we are. Jonathan says the police are on their way. After 5 minutes of silence, Jonathan asks me to check the door. I look through the peephole and don't see him. I feel relieved until I decide to check the parking lot. I look through the blinds in the guest room. His truck is parked right next to my car. He's sitting in the driver's seat, staring right at me. I think we locked eyes, but I'm not totally sure. I stay perfectly still so he doesn't see me move. He opens his truck door, and I bolt back to the bathroom. I tell Jonathan to lock the door and explain what I saw. 3 minutes later, there's more banging on the front door. I mutter, "Man," under my breath. Then we hear it's the police telling us to open up. I check the peephole, see the cop, and let him in. The officer says the truck is there, but it's empty. He says he's going to look around the building. We stay in the bathroom with the lights off. 10 minutes later, we hear insane, demonic screaming and laughing. I'm more scared now than I was before. I have no idea what the hell is happening. 5 minutes later, the cop says he found the guy in the empty apartment above us. The guy was just standing in a corner laughing to himself. When they cuffed him, he started hissing and fighting. They put him in the patrol car for breaking and entering. After they left, we saw dents in our door from where he hit it with his keys. The next day, the manager showed us a hole in the floor of the upstairs bathroom. The guy knew we were in our bathroom and tried to get in through the ceiling. Luckily, he only had a screwdriver to work with. He had just been stabbing the floor over and over.
A few years ago, my girlfriend and I went camping in northern Wisconsin. We aren't going back there without a big group of people. We're from Chicago and usually go up there to relax. We've hiked a lot of places, but never this specific forest. We aren't experts, but we've done plenty of national parks. We usually like the solitude, but this trip changed that. We planned to hike a remote part of the North Country Trail. It's a scenic trail that doesn't get much foot traffic. Some parts are only accessible by old logging roads. The plan was to hike 15 miles out, stay the night, and hike back. We started early and were amazed by how thick the woods were. On the drive in, we passed a couple of guys by a truck. They looked like total hillbillies with a beat-up pickup. I waved as we drove by, but they just stared. I saw them in the mirror still watching us through the dust. We joked about them, but didn't really think twice. We didn't see another soul on those narrow roads. We reached the trailhead, and nobody else was parked there. It seemed like the perfect spot for some peace and quiet. We locked the car and started our long hike. The weather was cool, so the bugs weren't too bad. We took photos of the forest as we walked along. After 8 hours of hiking, we reached the campsite. There was a small wooden shelter and a fire ring there. We decided to set up our tent in a clearing a bit further back. I made some food over the fire as it got dark. We shared some wine and looked at the stars. When the fire died down, we went to the tent. I was exhausted and ready to get some sleep. I didn't bother with earplugs since it was so quiet. My girlfriend was a bit nervous, but she usually is when camping. We eventually fell asleep, but then a loud noise woke us up. It was pitch black, and I heard a heavy thudding sound. It sounded like someone was hitting logs together. We both lay there in the dark, listening to it happen again. Our tent didn't have any windows, so we couldn't see out. We hoped it was just an animal, but the sound was too rhythmic. We were terrified and had no way to defend ourselves. I'd left the bear spray at home to keep my pack light. The knocking kept going while we stayed perfectly still. We didn't want whatever was out there to find us. Eventually, the knocking stopped, and it went quiet. Then we heard leaves crunching and people talking. It sounded like a couple of people in the distance. Luckily, the voices didn't seem to be getting any closer. We stayed awake for the rest of the night with our hearts racing. As soon as the sun came up, we got out of the tent. The coast looked clear, so we packed up as fast as we could. When we got to the shelter, my girlfriend screamed. The word "kill" was freshly carved into the wood.
Someone had been hacking at the walls with an axe or knife. There were fresh wood chips all over the ground.
In the late 90s, I was in my 20s and living in South Texas. I was going to beauty school to become a nail tech. I was one of the few non-Hispanic students there. Then there was a guy everyone called Batman. He was convinced he was actually Bruce Wayne. He was a regular fixture at the school for some reason. He was in his 30s and clearly had some serious mental issues. The staff used him as an errand boy because of his condition. I once saw him run blocks in the heat just to get someone a snack. He was always creeping around, and I became his main target. The teachers would tease him about having a crush on me. They'd laugh about him liking white girls. He started hanging around my table to tell me about his delusions. He told me he heard voices, specifically someone called the Colonel. He went on about his parents being fake secret agents. I wanted to point out Batman's parents are dead, but I stayed quiet. As graduation got closer, he got more intense. My fiancée started picking me up, and Batman hated him. My fiancé is a big guy who looks like a biker, so Batman kept his distance. Right before my wedding, my fiancé accidentally got his head shaved. The next time I saw Batman, he had shaved his head too. It was terrifying and made him look way more insane. The teachers were no help at all. When I asked them to keep him away, they told him I chose the wrong guy. They told him he needed to show me how much he loved me. I don't think they realized how dangerous he actually was. They just thought it was funny to watch me be uncomfortable. On my last day, I couldn't wait to get out of there. The teachers kept teasing him that it was his last chance. I was incredibly nervous by the time I was ready to leave. He was sticking to me like a total creep. He kept offering me rides and saying I didn't need my husband. The building got locked up and everyone started leaving. I was stuck waiting for my husband, who was running late. I almost asked a teacher to stay, but she drove off. I was alone outside with Batman and no phone. Batman was pleading with me to go to his truck with him. He said he lived nearby and wanted to show me his feelings. I kept telling him I had to wait for my husband. The look in his eyes was absolutely terrifying. He finally said he was going to go get his truck. As soon as he turned his back, I took off. I hid behind a dumpster in a different parking lot. I saw his truck cruising around looking for me. When he moved toward the street, I ran for a nearby grocery store. I stood there in the cold air, shaking and scared. I figured a public place was my only hope. I planned to run inside if I saw his truck again. Eventually, my husband finally showed up. I jumped in the car and started crying immediately. I never went back there and never saw that guy again. I've been in scary spots before, but this was different. I truly think he would have killed me if I hadn't run.
I usually keep this story to myself, but I felt like sharing it here.
It's why I never walk alone unless it's a busy place. My friend's family had moved to a tiny, quiet town. It was basically a ghost town with almost nothing in it. It was so isolated that you barely ever saw a car. One night, a tall man with a shotgun knocked on the door. In Oklahoma, that's either a neighbor or a threat. He was just a neighbor coming by to say hello. He warned us that the police were too far away to help. He told my friend's mom she should probably get a gun. I was 13 and probably should have stayed inside. But there was nothing else to do, so we went out. We'd walk to the store or the school playground. We usually didn't see anyone except the store clerk. One day, we headed to the park as soon as I got there. I had a terrible, anxious feeling in my stomach. I didn't know why I felt so on edge at the time. We hung out with an old friend for a bit before he left. We were sitting on a bench when a creepy van pulled up. My friend was always the brave one, but she got scared.
I actually felt my anxiety go away for a second. She wanted to leave immediately, but we waited to see who it was. Two big guys jumped out and started coming for us. We took off running, and they tried to grab us. They got back in the van and started following us. We ran as fast as we could toward the grocery store. I was so terrified, I couldn't even talk once we got inside. The bad feeling I had earlier finally made sense. I'd seen enough true crime to be scared, but didn't think it would happen to me. The van stayed across the street for a bit before leaving. We had to walk home, wondering if they were waiting for us. It was the scariest day I've ever had. I didn't tell anyone for a long time because I was a kid. Now that I'm older, I still think about what could have happened.
I work for a small tech firm with about 10 people. Most of us usually work on site with different clients. Sometimes I have to work out of our main home office. It's a cool building way out in the countryside. It sits on a big hill with a long driveway as the only entrance. The building is mostly glass, so I can see my car from my desk. I can see anyone coming up the driveway from the office. It was really quiet and peaceful out there at first. I'm an early riser, so the morning drive was nice. I didn't even feel the need to lock things like I did in the city. I loved looking at the fields, even if it got a bit lonely. I'd get excited whenever a delivery guy showed up. I always knew exactly who was around. Sometimes I'd be the only person in the whole building. One morning, it was just me and one coworker. We went for a walk down the driveway to get some exercise. We walked right past our cars and went back inside. A few minutes later, he tells me to look at our cars. We had just seen them a few minutes ago. Now, every single door on both cars was wide open. I hadn't heard a single thing. Nobody had driven up the driveway. The nearest neighbor was miles away. My coworker was with me the entire time. Someone had to have come through the fields just to mess with us. Nothing was missing, not even an iPad sitting in plain sight. We shut and locked the cars and the building. Now I always keep everything locked, even when I'm not alone.